I was always searching for the highest quality in cannabis. Well, it turned out, if you want something done right, you're just gonna have to do it yourself.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, been a little too nice to y'all.
Welcome back to VaderVision. We have had a crazy couple of weeks, and of course last week was the holiday, so I was gone and out of town for that. So we have a couple of videos to catch up on over the next week. Today we're going to go ahead and get those new clones we took transplanted. First I'm going to start with cleaning out the tray. I don't need to give it a full power washing, just going to give it a nice little light rinse and light scrub. We're going to do the same thing to the reservoir and reset it with some fresh new nutrients. We're going to fill this reservoir up with 40 gallons of reverse osmosis water, 400 milliliters of our can of cocoa A and B, 300 milliliters of our canazyme, and about 225 milliliters of our rhizotonic. That should bring us up to about a 1.4 EC. While I've got the hose out, I'm going to go ahead and top off our Alien Rift. This reservoir is at 1.13. We want to bring it up to 1.4, so I'm going to add 75 milliliters of can of cocoa A and B, 75 milliliters of canazyme, since we are continuing to run this and it's not a full reset, plus 50 milliliters of rhizotonic. That should bring our nutrient levels up right to 1.4 and be perfect for our vegetative cycle here as we determine their sex, which is we're about to do very soon. And we're going to go ahead and run that through a genetic test through one of the labs. Now, originally I was going to use two separate labs and compare the results. I'm sure they would have been the same, but we did want to run them through two separate companies. Unfortunately, I was only able to get a hold of one. The other company had some customer service issues, so maybe on another run, we'll go ahead and try and use them next time. But for now, we're just going to go with Phylos. If you haven't heard of Phylos, that's okay. I hadn't really heard about them much either, but I did do some research and they are offering genetic tests where you can determine the sex of the seedlings before you ever go into flower. Now, my mistake was I thought that the plants would need to be a little bit bigger. As it turns out, they require you to use the cotyledon leaves because they contain no THC, so it is legal to ship them, where you could be shipping leaves with THC if they're the larger serrated fan leaves. So here we've learned a lesson and something to note for the future. For our Alien Rift, we're only going to be testing 5 plants, but I did order a few extra cards. I was planning on doing some of the mothers, but since we don't need to send in any serrated fan leaves, we're just going to test our Alien Rift and give it a go. Each card comes with 4 testing squares with corresponding tags. Luckily, our Alien Rift are nice and healthy, and their cotyledon leaves are still nice and fresh, but sometimes the plants get a little bit bigger and those leaves will die, and that could be a problem. So I am glad that it ended up being fine for us, but definitely could have pulled a little sample off of these leaves just as the true leaves were just starting to show when the seedlings were first getting going. So you can actually take this test really early on. Now, I'm not going to make this into a true tutorial. There's a wonderful tutorial by Phylos online that you can see if you order this kit. But just to go over it, we do take a sample leaf, put it on our testing square, and then we're just going to smash it on down. I'm just going to use a spoon here, squish it down nice and tight, and get a nice juicy sample for the testing square itself. And then there's a bit of a waxy cover up top. So this way we can just go ahead and pull the excess material out. There we go. And we got enough juicy genetic material onto that testing card. Between each leaf pull, we are going to sterilize the tweezers for a good 3 to 5 seconds, just to make sure that we don't mix up any genetic material and get any false positive results from our tests. So nice and clean, nothing too fancy, but it's always nice to feel like a scientist. For each plant, I make sure to add the appropriate tags so that we can keep track of them in the right order. And as you can see, just a small leaf sample is all you need for these little testing squares. Here I will mention, I think the only downfall to these particular cards is that you do have to have 4 per card, and if you only have 1 or 2 plants for a card, you will spend the money on the entire card for the test. They do not have individual samples. Each of these cards costs about $50. So it is a little bit of an expensive test, but if you have low sample sizes, I definitely think it's worth it, especially with, say, in our Cali rec market, where you're only allowed to have 6 seeds. This can be really advantageous, and the money, I think, is definitely worth it. But if I were getting into a larger system with lots and lots of plants, The funding for this process could definitely add up. Although I did see that they do have commercially available systems, so I'm sure that they have a better price rate for larger sample sizes. Now, one thing, because I'm a Neanderthal, I did not realize that the CDRK, those letters down below, was the corresponding number. I thought maybe it was this number, so I made a cheat sheet for myself, which is why you see the A, B, C on there. But eventually, I did realize that the corresponding letters matched the cards. So for whatever reason, this threw me off a little bit because I did not see it as an example in their tutorial, but that's just me being silly. Luckily, we did figure it out. So we went ahead and sent our samples out to Phylos, but our plants are pretty big and it's going to take a good 5 to 7 days before we'll be able to get our results back from them. So we're just going to transplant them, keep them nice and healthy, and let them keep growing while we wait for our test results. During our transplant, make sure to inspect them under the leaves and, of course, the roots as well. Don't want any root aphids or anything funky popping up. Making sure that they're nice and healthy and white. Everything was looking good. They're also right tall enough at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and top all of them on their main stem. We're going to start bushing them out, and we're also going to do some leaf stripping on the girls once we start getting our test results in, and start training them so that we can tie them into a trellis and get a nice even canopy and get some quality yield from this nice little tray in this 4x4 tent. But fingers crossed that we get at least 2 or 3 females from our test results. While we're waiting for those test results to come back, we're gonna move on to our moms. We reset all of them. I took 3 clones from each, and it looks like everything rooted. Didn't have one that didn't root, so that was good news. Everything's nice and happy. We're gonna go ahead and get them into some 8-inch Cocotech baskets, and we're just gonna add a little cocoa flock into each of them. And as tradition, as we always do with our arrow cloner clones, we're just going to use a funnel to make a nice deep hole. And then we are going to pick the biggest, healthiest cut from our arrow cloner. Grabbing a Vader Actual right here with some nice big roots. Looking real healthy. And with the excess roots being extra long, we're just going to kind of snake coil them down into the hole. Give it a little twist, nice and gentle. And then pat our cocoa flock on down. And we should be good. Gonna get each of them set into the tray. And then my moms in the back, we're just gonna let them dry out so I can dry the cocoa out. And I'm not gonna be watering them over in the other tray for a few days. Compost them once we're ready. And then we'll be able to start spreading out all of these moms and dads into the other tray as they start growing up. And of course, we'll stay on top of topping them and stripping them as appropriate to keep them stored here for future projects. Well, that's it for this upload, but we will be back very soon with the test results for our Alien Rift and beginning our stripping and training process for going into flowering very soon. And of course, I did drag my feet a little bit on the PC grow, but that is still 100% firing away. With the holiday, I just held off an extra couple of weeks, but we will be jumping into that as well. As always, a huge shout out to everybody who slams that like button, leaves a comment, even if it's just aloha. Your support goes a long way to helping the channel grow. I'll be back again soon enough, so until next time, I'm Vader, and I'll see you later.